Sandra Dixon, and I am so excited about this week. What we've already learned at Stall High is absolutely mind-blowing. And I feel like that every week. Stall High, if you don't already know, is a mentorship app. It's an app just for horse people. And alongside the free community, we've got a coaching program or a mentorship program, whichever word you prefer. But it's so awesome to continue learning. So think about it this way. It's like continuing learning, just like you would in any profession, right? But it's for riders who want to unlock their horse's mental block. So Stall High is for riders who are having an issue. Maybe it's a behavior problem. Maybe you're dealing with a vice that you just don't know how to solve. You've been through a ton of equipment changes. You've maybe purchased different horses, but these different problems keep coming up, but the horse is physically sound. And that can be so frustrating, especially when you want results. And if you're in a competitive environment, and if you've purchased a performance horse, or if you're training your horse on your own and you're not getting the results that your horse has the potential to get, and you yourself feel like as a rider, you're blocked, you're stalled. Okay. Well, oh my stalls. We used to say, oh my stars, and now it's oh my stalls, because we're starting to realize and identify where those mental blocks are happening. And when you know what they are, you can then change them. You can then learn how to remove those blocks so that you and your horse can reach your fullest potential. This week's episode of Stall Talk is brought to us by lifeenthusiast.com, Dr. Martin Patella. I am very excited to learn more from Dr. Martin Patella, because he's going to come to Stall High with a wealth of information and expertise about our physical health, how we can physically take care of ourselves. Because guys, most of us are guilty of taking better care of our horses than we take of our own bodies, right? We give and we give and we give, and we work so hard taking care of our horses, we often overlook our own mental and physical needs. So that's where Dr. Patella can really fill in that gap for us as a community. So I'm excited for him. He will either join us at the end of this episode, or we'll have him on next week. But as we're going to get into our conversation today, my partner here, my right-hand woman at Stall High, Lori Roth from Nacogdoches, Texas. Hey, Lori.
Hello.
So we got into a conversation over the weekend. It carried over to class last night in the mentor program at Stall High. And the more I think about it, the more I realize there's so much more to learn. And I honestly never thought about it this way until we started breaking it down. So you and Shelly were talking about isolated muscles, your experience when we hold our breath, what happens. So the topic of today is the negative impact that holding your breath can have on your horse. I never thought about that. Now I've experienced it, but I didn't know what it was. I just thought my horse was stupid. Or I thought I needed a tighter tie down, or I thought I needed another approach to the barrel. I didn't realize that a simple thing like holding my breath could have been stalling my progress. So what is your experience? How did that click for you? Like, uh-oh, I have felt that before.
Yeah. And I mean, I can tell you from, from my teenage years, from doing workout programs, because of the sports I was involved in and things like that. Even through now, whenever when you're lifting weights or doing crunches and things like that, it's definitely more beneficial if you can focus on certain muscle groups. And we all have a tendency to hold our breath through that. So pretty much anyone you would go to for advice on any kind of exercise or weight training, one of the number one things that they're going to explain to you and show you and advise you to do is to breathe. And it sounds so simple, but our tendency is to hold our breath. The harder we're working at something, or even tense or stressful situations, we all have a tendency to hold our breath. And so what happens is when you hold your breath, that tension, it will just go. So we were we were talking about some core exercises the other day, and how to focus on isolating those muscles. So, for example, when you're doing crunches, you're wanting to focus your efforts on contracting those muscles, certain muscles in your abdomen. And we have a tendency to also be, crunching down on upper body muscles. So that tension, if you're not focused on isolating those muscles, the other muscles, that tension will just go up your body. So you can feel the muscles around your ribs. You can feel it. You'll feel it in your shoulder blades. You'll feel it in your shoulders. And if you're super tense, you even feel it in your arms, and it can go all the way to your hands. And so we were talking about really focusing and breathing through that, and to do core exercises, which we were talking about with, keeping a good seat in the saddle whenever you're running. To do that, what our focus should be is to breathe through it and just focus on contracting those muscles in your abdomen, like your lower abdomen, which you call the seat belt. And at the same time, you're wanting to breathe to try to keep your body overall relaxed, because you don't want that to go up through your rib cage and have tight shoulders. That's going to have an effect on your horse for sure. You also don't want your groin and your legs to be super tight. To maintain your form, you want to try to just relax those other muscles and work on contracting your lower abs. So it was just interesting to think about it. Something that we really don't think about, how much of just a natural reflex it is to hold our breath through those things.
So that was a huge eye opener for me. When I was first taught the importance, the value, people were training me to breathe, you need to breathe, you need to take a deep breath so you can get oxygen to your brain. Well, that's the only benefit I knew to tell myself. Like, I need to be able to think through this run. I needed to be able to process what's happening so I can help my horse. I never realized the repercussion. I never realized that focusing on my core too much, if I didn't relax the other muscles intentionally, that would travel up my body. And the way you and I and Shelly started connecting these dots, and we were so excited to share in class last night, was because of a conversation we had in class on Friday night with our coach, Ronnie Clampett. And Ronnie has said it before in Stall High. He said something about his dad was a carpenter. Is that right? Can you remember what he says about the foundation? If you're off just a tiny bit, is it 2
Yes,
inches?
I think it was somewhere around, I think he may have said like 3/16 of an inch. So if you're, when you're building the framework for the house, you start at the bottom. If you're off 3/16 of an inch, then as your structure goes up, that the amount that it's off of square, it ends up being around 2 feet at the top of the structure.
The trajectory. So the further you go, guys, the further distance you travel. And in that case, it's up. And we were specifically talking about the angle of shoes. So if a farrier doesn't have that angle very precise, that angle is going to get bigger. The impact's going to get bigger as it travels to the ankle, to your horse's knee, on up to the withers, or you go to the back, to the hock and the hip. And we think about, like, we're scratching our head, we're either racking our head against the barn, or for barrel racers, we're maybe bashing our shins against the barrels every week, trying to figure out, like, what is going on with my horse? And it could be something so minute that you don't realize has such a drastic impact, because when it travels over length, a greater distance, it creates a bigger problem. Oh, hello. So when we were talking about that, I was like, wow, so that's really traveling up. So if we're not, if we're so focused here and we're not isolating those muscles and allowing the other ones to relax, here's what really stood out to me as we were having this conversation. Guys, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or TikTok and you want better results with your horse, It could be as simple as holding your breath. If that is traveling up your muscles and causing your shoulders to be tight, and then transferring down your arms into your hands, you could very well be riding heavier handed than you even realize. And who pays the ultimate price for that? Our horses do, because all of that energy and that pressure and that tension, guys, just think about that. That is energy wadded up, and it's got to go somewhere. And so when it travels from our shoulders, okay, down our arms, through our hands, down the rein to the bit, and then their brain, well, that's pressure, and it's more times than not unnecessary. And that's when we start to see behavior problems erupt, because a horse can't tell us in English, yo, Kendra, stop pulling on my face, it freaking hurts. They can't communicate. They can't text us. They only have their body language. And it's up to us as riders to take accountability, take responsibility to put ourselves in their place, in their horseshoes. Imagine how that feels to them, not just physically, but what are the mental repercussions? If we ride like that every single day or every single time we compete, well, that is just compounded negative experience on top of negative experience on top of negative experience on top of negative experience. And the faster you go, the worse it gets. And the more you do it, the more reinforced it becomes. And that's when we get ourselves into these huge headaches, and they're expensive, that we don't know how to solve. And that's where I was, Lori. I wish I had access to this team years ago. When I was really struggling and at my lowest, if I'd had a team like we have now at Stall High, just to talk me through it. A clinic, I went to clinics, and I'm not going to say I didn't learn great things. I did, but it just made me hungry for more. It made me realize how much I didn't know. And the clinic always ended too soon. And I've taught clinics in person for over a decade. And I was always frustrated because of the bottleneck. I wanted to share 40 plus years of hardship and experience in one day's time with a group of 25 to 55 riders. That's not humanly possible. So now that we have all of our training online, and it's super easy, it's very accessible, it's very affordable for everyone who wants to be better with their horse. If you want to find the answers, you don't have a reason not to anymore, guys. And you can go try, free chat rooms and all that. Well, I did that too. All right. That was called show up at the barrel race and ask everybody else, what their opinion was. And that just made things worse, because I got deeper and deeper in the rut, and I got more and more confused, and I lost my compass. I lost all sense of confidence. And had I known the trainers that are now in our life, that are now coaching us on a daily basis, had I been part of this community. Last night, Matt Reeves, he wasn't able to coach because he was spending family time with the kids. So we just had community time as an interactive group. And I'm fascinated now that our conversation is taking on a very big challenge. How do we measure the amount of force? So when a stirrup is a quarter of an inch in the wrong position or in a more challenging position, by the time that travels from our hip joint to our heel, what difference does that angle make? And who pays the price? Not us. Our horses do. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get to our video reviews for the week. Do you have anything else to add, Lori? I just think I could totally geek out on this.
I know it. I know our conversation last night was great, and I feel like we are definitely getting to some of the details. There are things we were talking this weekend about how, you as after you've ridden a horse for so many years, like lots of our riders, that you feel like you've got most of the basics down, and there are some basic things that maybe have been overlooked, or that you made assumptions on, or maybe you got advice from from someone a long time ago, but there are new and better ways, things that you can focus on to just improve that, and which automatically, flows over to your horse. I do want to add one thing. Miss Sandra Holt is listening through Women's Pro Rodeo today. And
Sandy.
she said she's riding.
Shirt. This is all Sandy's design right here.
So she said she's riding her horse right now. And as we were talking about breathing, she became aware she was not completely and wholly breathing. She said, so I relaxed my breath and my horse relaxed hers. She said that's a huge difference in a chappy little jog to a nice fluid jog with flexion, just from changing her breathing.
Okay. So, and Sandy, super accomplished competitor and trainer from the reining field. So for her to be listening right now and give us feedback, guys, how much does that say for every one of us? It's not about how many years you've spent in the saddle or how many world champion titles you've won. Stall High, as a team and as a brand and as an app, we challenge all horsemen not to stop. Don't get stuck. Don't get stalled. Don't stifle your horse, figuratively or literally, just because you're so busy or you're not willing to pursue further education. And just by being in communication, okay, just by having conversations and having a team of experts to talk to ask questions. You can ask a pro every night of the week at Stall High, but just to collaborate. So last night I thought it was interesting. We as a group in the interactive group, Robin started sharing her years on the track riding race colts and how she uses her heel. The angle of her heel literally would help her stop a horse that had no face. Okay, race colts are not broken in the mouth. They ride different, they respond different. And she talked about how she could always gauge that just by changing the angle of her heel. That is fascinating. I mean, it almost seems like freakishly odd, but like it looks so supernatural. Is that magic? No, it's mechanics. But how often are mechanics undervalued? Are they underappreciated? All the while our horses are paying the price, and we're literally shelling out thousands of dollars in therapy, this and therapy, that, and this product and that supplement and this calming aid and that paste and this feed and all of these solutions that don't last. And it becomes overwhelming. And that's where I was. I mean, I was to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore, which was sad because it's what I most love to do, with my horses. So let me share my screen. We're going to get to our reviews this week. I am really excited about one of our riders in particular. We've had a great week, by the way, all of our riders. We've got some cool stories to share this week. Okay, so thank you again to lifeenthusiast.com, Dr. Martin Patella. We're going to learn a lot from Dr. Patella this year. And I'm really excited to see how our muscles and mind are connected, again, subconsciously. So here's Lindsay and Rita, her horse Rita. They won the 3D over the weekend. And that's a huge accomplishment, like huge. And we're just so excited. I love the smile on her face. I love the smile on Rita's face. So we're going to play back some screenshots. And I'm so thankful to Lindsay because she's willing to be transparent. She's willing to talk about the realities, the struggles that we face. And guys, sometimes it is up and down. There are a lot of variables. Last week, okay, so 7 days prior to this picture, she didn't have a great run. But when she came to the mentor class and we talked through it, I think she failed to realize Rita was hauling. Rita grabbed a new gear and that mare was running faster than she has run. And I was so proud of Lindsay for, as a rider, not overreacting with her hands. The run stayed smooth and fluid. It didn't feel smooth and fluid to Lindsay. And here's why. So we're going to show you the screenshots before and after. So here we go. Before. So here she is approaching barrel one. So this was Saturday a week ago. Okay, so this isn't 6 months ago. This is 1 week coming to class at Stall High and being able to collaborate and ask an expert 5 nights a week. Okay, so here's the before. There's the after. So this was Saturday. So what difference do you see, Lori? Before? After?
She's down in her saddle.
Uh-huh.
She's got her seat.
Look at the difference in Rita. You see where Rita's head is?
Yep.
Look at Rita's head here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I understand that, like, the camera position wasn't in the same spot, so it was a little bit tricky for me to grab those frames that made the most sense. But the run, oh my gosh, like last week was good. We were applauding, like, you're going way faster. You didn't overreact with your hands, but something was off. Okay, the math didn't add up. The angles didn't add up. She made one adjustment. And if you want to know what that is, we recommend you come to Stall High because we will teach you to identify where it is so you can problem solve as well. But she made one little change in the length of her equipment. If you're listening, I want you to guess, what was that? Okay. Look at how secure her seat is. Look where her feet are and look at the horse's reaction now. All right, let's go to the next 2 frames. Okay, this was the second barrel, Saturday a week ago, not 3 months ago, not last year, Saturday a week ago. So 7 days prior, look at the difference. So we'll go back. This is the second barrel. You see her horse's mouth is open a little bit. It's not huge. You see her head's just tilting just a touch. We can't see her head right here, but look at the difference in the rider. Much more secure. And it looks like here, Lori, it looks like what you were saying. Like she's so focused on her core that she's retaining tension here. It's traveling up her body. So if you're holding your breath, guys, you're not just not able to get oxygen to your brain. Not only will you not remember the run, your horse is going to pay the real price because you're going to ride heavier handed than you realize. That's what today's episode is all about. Start to pay attention to those little bitty things that are compounding to have a big result, either negative or positive. Okay, so let's look at the difference going on to the third barrel. That's our second barrel after. Here comes the third. All right, so this was 7 days prior. Okay, Saturday a week ago. You can already see the success of this turn is challenged because the success of any barrel is always determined in the beginning. How well you finish a turn is very dependent, and it's solely riding on how well you approach that turn. So if you're having problems with the horse bowing off the backside, your problem's not at the backside. It started before you ever got there. And that took me a long time to figure out. And when I could wrap my head around it, I still had to dive into the anatomy of the horse, to the physiology, to those muscles in motion and what wasn't making sense, what wasn't adding up. And you know what? Everything I'd been spoon-fed to do, barrel racing, lift that shoulder, just check, lift, and put your inside foot in. That was the problem. That did not work for my horses. The only horses it worked for were the horses who learned how to ignore me. They went numb to me. And all I had to do was sit there and flatten. Just kick, and hustle. And they just learned the path of least resistance. But they were 20 years old by the time they did that. So those methods failed me royally. And when I got challenged in the check, lift, inside hand, inside leg, well, that changed the course of my career, praise God. And I'm so thankful for the one lady who was bold enough to speak up and say, why are you doing that anyway? Don't tell me it's the way I was taught. That is a very lame excuse. We owe it to our horses to be responsible riders and pursue wisdom. And maybe it works for one horse out of 10,000 or one horse out of 1,000. Even if it only works for one out of 100 or one out of 10, is that sufficient? If it's not working for your horse, stop doing it. Find a different way that makes sense to your horse. And that's what we're here, waving the banner, mental health for horses. Because if they're not physically in pain, something's not adding up. There's a mental block somewhere preventing their full potential, preventing them from reaching their full potential. So already right now, we know this turn is set up for hardship. Okay, so here's the before, here's the after. Look at the difference in the rider. She changed one thing, one piece of equipment. She did not change her saddle. And we've been questioning the saddle because it's clearly not working for her. So she had to make an adjustment to it. So here we go, back. So there was Saturday a week ago. This was Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, look at the change in her, just from her hips up, look at the change in her body position. I mean, it looks like she's coming off the saddle here. There she is seated, and it looks like her upper body is relaxed going into that.
You nailed it.
And look at Rita's head.
Yes.
Just calmer and more level. Yeah.
You can't argue with that. Like the proof is in your horse. And so, guys, if you're watching on a different platform and you're frustrated right now, and your horse, it doesn't have to be a barrel horse. Maybe it's a breakaway horse, a reiner like Sandy's. Maybe you just have a weekend horse that you enjoy trail riding, but y'all are butting heads right now. We can help you. There's probably, more times than not, there is a mental reason for the behavior. And we want to help explain what that is. We don't want to just sell you a fast fix, okay, or a Band-Aid or a product that, people falsely think is the end all be all. It could help, but we really want to help riders see with new eyes and peel back the layers to get to the root of the problem so you can actually find the cure. Don't just slap a Band-Aid on the symptom. Let's find the cure, guys, so that our horses and the longevity of their career increases, and our relationship, our friendship, and our connection to our horses gain value. Isn't that what we really want? Isn't that why we're doing it? Okay, here's the next one. Before, okay. So we already knew this term was going to get tricky because the approach was already skewed. Okay, so you can see right here, this rider has lost balance, and I'm so proud of her, even in this run. And guys, this isn't fun. Nobody wants their runs critiqued like this, right? Having to say, wow, like that was not our best, but we're able to recognize the improvement. So in spite of feeling like chaos, Lindsay did a fantastic job not overreacting with her hands. And that in itself was worth celebrating. That's another benefit of the community at Stall High. You get plugged in to a community of coaches and peers who are here to uplift you and see what you can't. So when you leave that arena and you're tempted to feel like, man, that was such a setback. No, it was not. You are one step closer to your breakthrough. And here's the proof. Look at the difference. This is crazy town. Get ready for it. Again, our video wasn't the same, so she's about to run out of the shot. But look at her. You see her legs are in front of her. Her posture is secure, but it's still relaxed, like you said, Lori. That's the frame of a professional rider right there.
Now, there's an audio issue. You're echoing, or is that the video?
Secure, but it's still relaxed, like you said, Lori.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So she looks like a pro rider here. And you go back to 7 days earlier. One change of equipment. If you're watching, I want you to drop it in the comments. What do you think she changed? Look at the difference. And like you pointed out, Lori, look at the difference in the horse. And it was fun. So here's the full run. And to see how far they've come. Lindsay came to all of our digital clinics last year. She signed up in our interactive program this year, and she comes to class. She does her homework. And when we say homework, we're not talking about signing up for some grueling routine, okay? This is reality. She lives where it's very cold. She doesn't get to ride all winter like those of us in the South do. So she's made it work. She's also a busy woman. So she's a career woman. She's typically coming to class on her drive home. This is not about spending more hours, logging grueling hours, just doing busy work with your horse. This is about making the most efficient use of your time with knowledge. That's the value. You're investing in the result. You're not signing up for some program that's unrealistic to today's lifestyle. Here's another rider, super proud of, so exciting to see their progress. So this is Cheryl on her mare. Now they already had a strong 1D record when they came into Stall High, the Stall High Society, we're going to call it, the mentorship program. Very accomplished rider. She recognized that she has a very high caliber horse on her hands. Okay, she's done a fantastic job training this horse. Horse already entered the program. Cheryl came in with a strong 1D record. Now she is refining herself as a rider, doing less, getting even more. So at this run over the weekend, it was their first WPRA sanctioned race. She does end up clipping the second barrel, which is going to happen, guys. We can talk about the math. Let's do the math so that we have a game plan for the next time. Had she not tipped that barrel, she would have won this race, WPRA sanctioned, by half a second. That's astronomical. We can fix the math. We can fix the angle right here. The amount of timing, the space, the distance, how her horse's frame is traveling into this turn. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight in class and tomorrow. So tonight, James Davison and I will switch nights. So James will be our coach tonight. I'll coach in place of him tomorrow on Wednesday. Guys, if you're having problems with your horse, James Davison is an expert equine behavior specialist. So really understanding what's going on in your horse's mind, that's right up James's alley. And so even if you just want to attend one class per week and you're having behavior problems that you don't understand, you've asked everybody you know to ask, download the Stall High app and let us connect you with James Davison. All right, so here's one of our futurity trainers. This little filly is starting to step it up. So I love that she's floating across here. What can happen is sometimes we're tempted to get busy right here. And we're tempted to start kind of shaping and holding them off a little early, even if we don't realize it. And I think we do that out of, in our minds, we justify ourselves and we think we're taking precautionary steps to leave that barrel standing. But think about that pressure applied over time, when you're even applying a little bit of pressure, but you add speed to it, it compounds. Well, if you hold that pressure for one stride and then 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all of that is going to compound the result on your horse. So I'm very proud of Tammy. This is our rider, Tammy, for just letting her horse travel. She's resisting the urge to be super trainer and get in there and be handsy. She's allowing this horse to learn. She's allowing this horse to make mistakes. And then just go back and correct them, but don't force feed your horse the correct answer. We don't grill it and drill it to the point that we just ride the life and the will to learn and the will to run right out of them. That happens a lot. Now that you're listening to this, I don't know what platform you're on, and maybe you're watching a replay, but you will never go to a barrel race again without looking around. And maybe it's just a roping event. Maybe it's a cutting. I don't know what your event is. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. But you're going to start to see with new eyes, and you're going to start to think. And pretty soon you're going to start to have those light bulb moments like we're having. And like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I told this sooner? If I had known this sooner, what kind of results could I've gotten 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago? So I'm proud of Tammy for just letting this mirror float. She gets a little sticky right there. That's part of learning. This is a young horse. She's going to learn. She needs to learn next how to keep those feet moving through tougher ground. Okay. When you add speed, it's a little bit more challenging. You know how Ronnie talks about on Fridays, we're not really training, we're teaching, but you have to watch your student. You have to monitor their attitude. And when they become fatigued, shut her down. Because if you push any student, whether it is a human student or a four-legged animal, this is your class. You're responsible for teaching the student. And when you push them to the point of fatigue, you've lost them. You have just devalued everything you've tried to accomplish. So you're actually making it harder for them. You're making them less willing to come to class and try hard again tomorrow. And you see a lot of trainers just grinding, and horses are just boiling in sweat and foam and froth. And I'm not saying that I don't do that occasionally. If a horse comes in that wants to fight, is confused, sometimes you need to soak, like you need to go put miles on them and wet saddle pads. I'm not saying that we're opposed to that, but that's not our protocol every day. And I don't approve of having to ride a horse down for an hour before you can take him to the show pen. That's not realistic for my daily lifestyle, nor is it realistic for most people's. And it's really not healthy for that horse mentally or physically. So let's keep going. So we're talking about pulling through the dirt. We've got a little boggy spot here. We're going to talk about that this week in class. Same thing's going to happen right here. What I'm happy about is that she doesn't reprimand this horse. She's letting her learn. We're acknowledging the faster we go, the more challenging it is, but she's going to come out in the end. So we're going to talk about how to kind of sharpen up that 2/3 corner where her horse is getting kind of stuck in the ground like, oh, I'm kind of running out of steam. This is hard. Like, how can we as instructors come in and make it easier for this horse to understand so that she has the right posture and the right amount of momentum to push her through the turn without getting bogged down and without having to slow down and restart the motor? That's what we're going to talk about this week in class. I'm excited for this young filly. All right, guys, if you're watching and you want help with your horse, go download the Stall High app. It's easy. It's free. There's going to be a ton of questions to answer about yourself and your horse. That's going to let us as a team see your profile, and we'll be in touch with you so that we can help you find the solutions that last, not just the quick fix. Not everybody is going to be a good fit for Stall High. If you want to go, what did Nana used to say? My grandmother used to say, never stand in the way of somebody who wants to learn the good old-fashioned way. And I was that rider. I thought, surely there is a quick solution for me. I don't have time for that. I don't want to learn that. I was so prideful, and I was so offended when people wanted to teach me something. No, I would rather work hard, earn money, go buy product. Is it a saddle pad? Is it a saddle? Is it a new horse? Is it a new bridle? Is it a new bell boot? Is it a certain approach? I'll pay somebody to show me the quick fix. Quick fixes don't last. I learned that the hard way. And I end up setting myself back further and further and further. And every time I bought a different horse, I set myself back even further on the calendar and in my bank account, to the point where it just didn't make sense anymore. So I'm so thankful that one person came along and told me to stop it. She said, stop listening to everybody else and start listening to your horse. And that changed the course of my career. I'm so thankful for her. Miss Laura, if you're ever listening, I love you. Thank you. Thank you again to Dr. Martin Patella at lifeenthusiast.com. We're going to learn a lot from this guy. So he's going to be coming in to Stall Talk on a more regular basis, helping us understand the mind and muscle connection. How our muscles, just like today, what we talked about, are subconsciously in this muscle pattern and in this muscle memory that are having a negative impact on our horse. And we don't even know it. We think, we're trying to solve it with a trip to the vet for our horse. And I'm not saying that's not good. We approve of vet checks. We go on a regular basis. Even if it's just for a wellness child, there's not a problem. Let's just go get a wellness check. But how many thousands of dollars are being put in the wrong place and you're not getting the return on your investment? There's typically a mental block to blame, and that's what we want to solve at Stall High. So recapping, Lori, I'm going to toss it to you about what we're learning this week about the breath and heavy hands.
Yeah, just try to focus on making sure you keep breathing. It's definitely going to be more challenging at speed. When you're relaxed riding, exercising your horse, not a big deal. But when you're hunkered down and going for it, it's going to be a lot more challenging. So it's a good goal. We talk about, Matt Reeves is our Monday night coach, and he recommends setting specific goals, instead of, I want to make it to the NFR this year, or even I want to win, I want to place in the top 5 in this upcoming race. Set specific goals for yourself, based on your training, where you are, what's going on with your horse. If you've had issues with touching or knocking over a barrel, just make that your goal. I'm going to get around that second barrel this week without knocking it down. And just in the process of those small goals, make sure that you continue to breathe and stay relaxed. And I think you'll see more progress than you realize, than you would expect from simple, specific goals like that.
Mm-hmm. So good. Thank you. And if you want help, so that's what frustrated me. Like, I was looking for quick answers, but then I would get them and I would be frustrated because it wasn't enough. I was like, why? Like, people tell me to relax, or people tell me to breathe. Well, I've been doing that for how many years now? I only learned last night that holding my breath made me ride with heavier hands. So if you're not even aware, if you just come out of the pen and you're fuzzy headed, like, I don't even know what happened. If you can't remember your run, you're holding your breath. So what did we learn this week? It's not just a lack of oxygen to the brain. Your horse's face pays the price because you're riding heavier handed than you even realize, just because that if you're not isolating that concentration, it's traveling up. It's traveling up to your shoulders. You're retaining tension. It's going down your arms, through your hands, through the reins, to the bit, to your horse's brain. And so just put yourself in your horse's shoes, guys. If your horse doesn't want to go in the pen anymore, it's time to ask why. And don't ask why one time. We ask why every day at Stall High, because we truly love learning. And when you're in an environment where it is celebrated to learn and have those revelation moments and those breakthroughs with your horse, and to have a stronger bond with your horse, and just to feel better. Don't leave the barrel race. There are some people that leave the barrel race winning it, and they're still trashing on themselves. They're still saying, yeah, but if I had only done this, that will suck the joy out of what you're doing. That's not sustainable. You won't end up staying very long, or it'll compound on you too, mentally and physically. So we definitely want to prevent burnout. We'll be talking more about that. One thing that was interesting, and we started class or did we end it? I think we ended it on Friday with Ronnie. Most people think that burnout and that trauma comes from one major event, like you have an accident on a horse, or you go through a loss, okay, or you go through a divorce, or like something big happens and you think that is the root of my problem. Not so. It's typically, that's not the biggest thing that's holding you back. It's all those little things that add up over time and they compound. Not only do they compound for us, they're compounding for our horses. And that's why they just throw in the towel one day and say, I can't do this anymore, because mentally it has become too much. So typically, it's not one major event that causes the most damage. It's all those little ones that have added up over time. And we can change that, guys, through awareness. And that's what we're here at Stall High to do. So Lori, thanks for being here with me today. Thank you guys for watching wherever you're watching from. Thank you, lifeenthusiast.com. We're excited to learn more about our health this year, and we're excited for the NFR coming up soon as well. If you have questions, reach out to us, info@stallhigh.com. You can drop a comment on whatever platform you're watching from, except for TikTok, because that live is about to go away, guys. So reach out to us. You can always download the Stall High app for free. Fill out the profile questions if you really want to learn. If you really want to see, and you don't want somebody to just spoon feed you a quick fix, but you want to find the cure for your horse so that you have longer lasting results and better results, download the Stall High app. I'm Kendra Dixon. There's my co-host, Lori Roth, and we'll see you there. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
See you next week.